In the House of Commons, Richard Tice, a Reform MP, rejects Labour's plan to quote-unquote smash the gangs to combat illegal immigrants coming into the country. Tice says that the Labour government should be turning away the boats back to France. We will of course check this clip out and react, whilst also going over all of the latest British political news from up and down the country. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all things Westminster. So as stated, Richard Tice, a Reform MP, rejects Labour's plan to quote-unquote smash the gangs to combat illegal immigrants coming into the country. Have a watch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When you take a drug dealer off the street corner, guess what? Another one appears because of the vile drugs trade and the amount of money involved. My constituents of Boston and Skegness believe it's exactly the same with trying your policy, Home Secretary, of smashing the gangs. If you smash one gang, it's like a game of whack-a-mole. Another one appear, and another one will appear, because there is so much money involved. Here's the point. How long will you give your policy, Home Secretary, before realising that the only policy will work is the policy that you actually started last week, which is to pick up and take back to France, which we're entitled to do under international maritime law. It will help British citizens, it will help the British taxpayers, and it will help the French, and it will reduce the magnet factor.
Hear, hear, hear.
Well, what I would say to the honourable member is that no one should be making these dangerous journeys, and the criminal gangs are making massive profits from organising these boats. I just don't think they should be able to get away with it, and they are at the moment. We should be taking action against those criminal gangs, and I simply don't accept that it's impossible to go after the criminal gangs to make sure that you take action not just on the gangs themselves, but also on their supply chains, on the routes in which the boats that are taking, on their finances, and that we properly, substantially increase the law enforcement resources. As honourable members will know, we have had cases where journalists have identified smugglers and those responsible for being involved in some of the smuggler gangs. I think that those smuggler gang members should be facing law enforcement. We have to do this. It's essential that we do. This is about properly standing up for the rule of law, as well as making sure that we do everything we can to prevent these dangerous small boats.
What do you make of this? And is Tice correct? Or do you believe the plan should be to smash the gangs? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. In other news, Nigel Farage has criticised Ed Miliband's proposed energy performance certificate targets for landlords, claiming they will be impossible for some to meet by 2030. Farage said, "With older properties, if you are going to be able to meet these EPC targets Ed Miliband thinks you have to by 2030, it is pretty much impossible." The comments come as Labour's Energy Secretary pushes for stricter energy efficiency standards in rental properties, aiming to raise the minimum EPC rating from E to C by the end of the decade. Labour's proposed EPC targets for rental properties have sparked debate in the UK property sector. The party aims to raise the minimum energy efficiency standard for rented homes from the current E rating to C by 2030. This policy, outlined by Ed Miliband at the recent Labour Party conference, is designed to address what he called the Tory scandal of tenants living in cold, drafty homes. The move echoes previous Conservative plans, which were later relaxed by Rishi Sunak's government. Critics argue that the targets may be too ambitious and could have unintended consequences for the rental market. The EPC system has faced criticism from various quarters. A Leeds Beckett University study found that approximately 27% of EPCs completed between 2008 and 2016 contained errors. Critics argue that the grading system is not fit for purpose and can clash with other net zero initiatives. Chris Norris of the National Residential Landlords Association called EPCs a blunt tool, noting their limited usefulness for landlords and tenants. The system's reliance on non-intrusive assessments, where assessors must guess insulation levels, has also been questioned. Despite these concerns, the government has yet to overhaul the assessment process. The cost of upgrading rental properties to meet the proposed EPC targets is substantial. An analysis revealed that £36 billion would be needed to improve Britain's rental properties to achieve the C rating. In 85% of local authorities, the average cost to upgrade eligible properties exceeds £10,000. Michelle Lawson of Lawson Financial warned that these costs could lead to higher rents as landlords struggle to absorb the expenses. With many landlords already facing high mortgage rates and reduced tax breaks, there are concerns that these additional costs could drive some out of the market, potentially exacerbating the housing crisis. Finally, Chancellor Rachel Reeves may need to raise as much as £25 billion in taxes to support Labour's spending initiatives, according to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS. The IFS's Green Budget Report, backed by the Nuffield Foundation and utilising economic forecasts from Citi, outlines the substantial hurdles Reeves will encounter as she prepares for her first budget on October 30th. Reeves steps into a challenging public finance landscape, with taxes at historic highs and growing debt. Despite this, she is committed to boosting investment spending and funding public services. However, her options are limited by Labour's manifesto commitments, which pledge not to increase key taxes such as income tax, corporation tax, national insurance, and VAT. IFS Director Paul Johnson cautions that Reeves's first budget could be the most significant since at least 2010. To prevent cuts and fulfil her promise to borrow solely for investment, she would need to implement a £16 billion tax increase to balance the budget by 2028 to 29. This would add to the £9 billion tax rise proposed in Labour's manifesto, bringing the total to nearly £25 billion. Such a tax increase would exceed those seen in July 1997 and October 2010, both around £13 to £14 billion. Despite these challenges, Labour's vow not to raise key taxes complicates Reeves's ability to achieve this scale of increase. To accommodate this year's pay settlements and avert cuts to public services, Reeves would need to allocate an additional £30 billion for day-to-day spending by 2028 to 29, according to IFS estimates. This comes as Labour claims to have inherited a £22 billion black hole in public finances from the previous government. Reeves has acknowledged that tough decisions lie ahead, but has ruled out a return to austerity measures. Speculation is rife about how Reeves might raise funds. The IFS suggests that adjustments to capital gains tax could be a possibility, although Paul Johnson stresses the importance of careful reform rather than a straightforward increase. Modifications to inheritance tax are also rumoured to be under consideration. These potential changes emerge amid strained public finances, with taxes reaching record levels and public services facing pressure. The IFS notes that prisons, police, and local councils are particularly impacted. Johnson highlights the dilemma facing the Chancellor, noting, "The temptation then is to borrow more, perhaps redefining the debt targeted by the fiscal rules." However, he warns that this strategy is not risk-free, given the UK's dual deficits in both the budget and current account. Benjamin Nabarro, chief UK economist at Citi, provides a cautiously optimistic outlook for the UK economy. He sees a notable opportunity for structural reform, but cautions that the UK contends with unique budget constraints compared to other advanced economies. He explained, "Unfortunately, large outstanding debt and a current account deficit mean the UK faces budget constraints that many other advanced economies do not." What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.